Hello and welcome to Supposedly Fun. My name is Greg, and I'm here today to react to the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction announcement. As I have begun filming, they have started the announcements at this moment. The co-chairs from the board are giving a quick speech. Marjorie Miller, the administrator of the prize, has already given a quick speech about censorship. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick intro while they build up to the announcement of the Fiction Prize, which is the one that I am specifically going to be reacting to. If you follow along, you know I am a huge Pulitzer Prize fan. And I have a video that I did about one of the winners, Interpreter of Maladies, my origin story, I guess you would say, with the Pulitzer Prizes for Fiction and how I came to be such a fan of it. That will be linked down below, along with a lot of other things. I feel nervous, like really nervous about this, and I didn't think I would. And I was thinking about it, and I realized I think I feel nervous today because I feel like I have a lot to live up to. If you saw my Pulitzer Prize reaction last year, a lot of people loved it. I freaked out because there was a tie in the fiction category. And one of the books that I was really rooting for was Demon Copperhead, and it was one of the books that tied. So I freaked out. I was really nervous leading up to it, and it just was a whole thing. I'll link it down below. So now I feel like I have to match that, but that's not going to happen again. If that happens again, this might be a video of me rapturing. So the co-chairs are still talking. I admit I have not been paying attention to what they're saying, but I believe what's going to happen is they are going to do some speeches, and then they'll start with the journalism prizes, and there are a bunch of those. And then usually what happens is once they get into the arts and literature prizes, they kind of go backwards and make the fiction prize the last one that they announce. So we should have plenty of time before we get to the actual announcement of the fiction prize. I'll put a timestamp down below if you really want to jump to just the reaction. So I figured I would talk a little bit about my prediction, some of the candidates. I've pulled a bunch of books from what I have that could be winners. We'll see. I am wearing my Parnassus bookstore t-shirt. This is a bookstore based in Nashville. I chose this intentionally because Ann Patchett is the owner of Parnassus Books, and she is my prediction for the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction for this book right here, Tom Lake. I do admit this is my prediction. I feel like the safe money for this year is on either The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride or Northwoods by Daniel Mason. These would be the safe bets. I feel like because I was so successful last year, I really felt like the top two contenders were Demon Copperhead and Trust, and they ended up tying. I feel a little emboldened to move away from one of them and predict Tom Lake, but we'll see what happens. I think Ann Patchett would be a fantastic winner. Yeah, we're moving into the journalism prizes now. And Heaven and Earth Grocery Store would also be a really worthy winner as well. So I'm going to be very happy if either one of these books win. I feel like Northwoods is the book most people are predicting. It's the safe money bet for the Pulitzer Prize for this year. I was a bit more muted on it. Daniel Mason has been a finalist before for a book called A Registry of My Passage Upon the Earth. So odds are pretty good that one of these books will be the winner. I'm actually thinking that because we had a tie last year, and the tie was between two of the biggest books of the year, I do think there is a very strong case that we could end up getting a much lesser known book as the winner this year. That is kind of what I think will happen, but barring that, I think we're very likely to be getting one of these. But I will also not be surprised if we get Absolution by Alice McDermott as a winner. She has been a finalist a couple of times before. Of all the people who have been contenders before, she has been a finalist the most without actually winning. We could also have Blackouts by Justin Torres. It does feel like this book could easily win, although it is a little bit experimental and sort of like capital L literature. And if they're going to do that, Northwoods is right there. This won the National Book Award, and the National Book Award and the Pulitzer don't usually go hand in hand. So I did start reading this morning, and we'll see what happens. It's just going to be interesting to see if it ends up winning or not. We could also see Jesmyn Ward win for Let Us Descend. Paul Harding has already won a Pulitzer, but he's in the mix again for this other Eden. They're about to announce breaking news reporting, Witness by Jamel Brinkley. The story collections don't tend to do well with the Pulitzer. They don't win a whole lot of the time. And the last two that have won have been linked stories. This is a pretty strict story collection. So it will be interesting to see if that does end up winning. But yeah, short story collections have had a tough go of it. And the last two that won were linked collections, Olive Kitteridge and A Visit from the Goon Squad. A short story collection has not won since Interpretive Maladies in 2000. And the final contender that I pulled is The Lost Journals of Sacagawea by Deborah Magpie Erling. I'm going to keep my pile over here. So if one of these books wins, I can grab it and hold it up. They are currently doing investigative reporting. I am nervous all over again. And I really didn't think that was going to happen to me this year. I was all set because, ultimately, I think the writing in Northwoods is great. I just didn't really respond to the story all that well. So we'll see what happens. So will one of these books win? I don't know. It will be interesting. Again, I'm not at all going to be surprised if we get a bit of a curveball and a lesser known book wins this year. It could be The Deluge by Stephen Merkley. It could be, lesser known means it would be hard to predict, but I would not be surprised if Biography of X ends up winning. The Vulnerables by Sigrid Nunez. I Am Homeless If This Is Not My Home by Laurie Moore. It could go a lot of different ways. Changing All-Stars would be a sort of left field pick because it doesn't feel like something that the Pulitzer would recognize, but it was a big book from this year. Could go a lot of different ways. Day by Michael Cunningham, Disruption, Stephen Millhauser, Open Throat by Henry Hoke has an outside chance. It's a book that's about a gay mountain lion. Who knows? Lots of contenders, not a lot of answers at this moment. Okay, here we go. We're moving to the winners in arts and letters. Again, if they go by previous years, they will save fiction for last, and we'll do the other categories first. So Marjorie Miller, the administrator, is giving a little speech, and I'm getting nervous all over again. I had kind of calmed down while they were doing all of the other prizes, but now my sense of adrenaline is just like through the roof all over again. And I should note that Teddy came in and fell asleep on the floor behind me, so if you hear snoring, it's him. The drama winner is Primary Trust by Ebony Booth, and as they were talking about it, it sounded really interesting, so I might have to look for a copy of that book. So they're announcing biography right now, and the first finalist is Larry McMurtry, A Life by Tracy Doherty, which did sound like an interesting book, and Larry McMurtry is in the Pulitzer family of authors. He won for Lonesome Dove, which is a fantastic book, and I have wanted to read more of his work ever since I read Lonesome Dove, but I haven't gotten around to it, so I just wanted to point that out. It'll be interesting to see if King, A Life is the next one. That is exactly the one I was about to say, by Jonathan Eig. I fully expect that one will win the biography category, but let's see what the third finalist is before I really commit one way or the other. As I said, Larry McMurtry is in the Pulitzer family of authors, so it'd be interesting to see if a biography of him ends up winning. Oh, interesting. The third one is Master, Slave, Husband, Wife, An Epic Journey from Slavery to Freedom by Ilyan Wu. I've heard great things about that book, and I would really like to read that one as well. So this is an interesting category. I could be convinced to read all three of these books. I feel like it's going to be either King, A Life, or Master, Slave, Husband, Wife. But let's see what happens. Oh, there are two winners in this category. They're doing this to me again. King, A Life by Jonathan Eig, and I feel like the other one's going to have to be Master, Slave, Husband, Wife. And it also goes to Master, Slave, Husband, Wife. They're doing it again. They're freaking me out. Pulitzer, why? That is really good. I could easily read either one of those books. Okay, here we go. Memoir or autobiography. Also, I forgot to mention, Zadie Smith was a finalist in the criticism category for a review she wrote of the movie Tar. So Zadie Smith could have won a Pulitzer Prize, but not for fiction, which would have been an interesting turn of events, but it didn't happen. The Country of the Blind is now a finalist for memoir or autobiography. That did sound like a really interesting book. I want to say it was on the Washington Post's best books of 2023, and I've been meaning to read it ever since. I have it saved as an audio on Scribd, but I just haven't gotten around to reading it yet. All right, this should be fiction. Okay, the finalists for fiction are Night Watch by Jane Ann Phillips. I don't think I even covered that on my predictions list. A beautifully rendered novel set in Virginia's Trans-Allegheny lunatic asylum. in the aftermath of the Civil War. It sounds like a really interesting book. I was really looking forward to it, but I haven't read it. Anyway, we're a severely injured Civil War veteran. I've fallen behind in the description of the book, but okay. Wednesday's Child by Yi Yoon Lee by Farrar Straus and Giroux. Oh my God, I don't think I had that one on my list. This is going to be the year where I don't have the winner on my prediction video. It's going to happen to me. Oh, and I completely missed. I've read one book by Yi Yoon Lee, and I was not a fan of it. But we'll see. We shall see. All right, what's the final finalist? Same Bed, Different Dreams by Ed Park. Another one I don't think I had in my predictions because it's a kind of a genre blend of literary fiction and sci-fi. So what's it going to be? I'm going to say Night Watch based on this list. But let's see. Again, I completely missed the description of the book. I'm like... I don't know what's going to happen. All right, and the winner is, and the prize goes to Night Watch by Jane Ann Phillips from Knopf. Oh my, I can't believe it. I don't think I included it because it just felt like the reaction to that book was kind of muted, and it like Jane Ann Phillips is a known author, but I you know what? I knew it was going to happen, that this year they were going to go with a lesser known book. And that is absolutely what ended up happening. I'm going to turn off the volume here and I'm just going to go to bookshop.org so I can look up Night Watch, and I'm going to have to order a copy of this book because I don't have one. I did really want to read it. It was featured in the video I did about the most exciting upcoming releases in the second part of 2023, and I just never caught up to it. It happens sometimes with those books. So, wow. Night Watch by Jane Ann Phillips. Jane Ann Phillips wrote, I think, Lark and Termite. Is that the book? Yeah, Lark and Termite, and is the author of Motherkind, Fast Lanes, Machine Dreams, Black Tickets, and a whole lot. I've heard really good things about Lark and Termite, but let's do a quick description of Night Watch right now, and then hopefully by the time I've done the description of it, they will have updated the site, and I can tell you who the jurors are, and we can see what their specific citation was, because they didn't say anything about it before they started wrapping up the announcement of the prizes. Okay, so it was longlisted for the National Book Award in Fiction, didn't make the shortlist. It was one of the New Yorker's best books of the year, which is interesting because the editor of the New Yorker is usually on the board for the Fiction Prize. Well, he's on the board for the Pulitzer, and I assume he gets to have some say in the Fiction Prize. So it does feel like even though the New Yorker has a really large amount of best books of the year, anything that's on the list could have a leg up. So anyway, it says, in 1874, in the wake of the war, erasure, trauma, and namelessness haunt civilians and veterans, renegades and wanderers, freedmen and runaways. 12-year-old Coralie, the adult in her family for as long as she can remember, finds herself on a buckboard journey with her mother, Eliza, who hasn't spoken in more than a year. They arrive at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in West Virginia, delivered to the hospital's entrance by a war veteran who has forced himself into their world. There, far from family, a beloved neighbor, and the mountain home they knew, they try to reclaim their lives. The omnipresent vagaries of war and race rise to the surface as we learn their story, their flight to the highest mountain ridges of Western Virginia, the disappearance of Conalee. I said Coralie earlier, but it's Connolly's father, who left for the war and never returned. Meanwhile, in the asylum, they begin to find a new path. Conalee pretends to be her mother's maid. Eliza responds slowly to treatment. They get swept up in the life of the facility, the mysterious man they call the Night Watch, the orphan child called Weed, the fearsome woman who runs the kitchen, the remarkable doctor at the head of the institution. Epic, enthralling, and meticulously crafted, Night Watch is a stunning chronicle of surviving war and its aftermath. You know, the only prediction I got right was that it was going to be a lesser known book this year. And I have always said there will be a year where I don't mention the book that ends up winning in my prediction. And I don't think I did. Let me just double check. Yeah, I didn't have it. I didn't have it at all. So it finally happened. A book won the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction that I did not have on my prediction list. And I knew it would happen eventually. And it really felt like this would be the year for that to happen, because last year the jury went with two of the biggest books of the year. And it really did feel to me like there could potentially be a sort of snapback to that, because, you know, sometimes the jury likes to recognize lesser known things or authors who've been sort of quietly working away for a while. And it just felt like this would have been a good year to do that after two of the more recognizable and celebrated books of the year ended up winning. And that is, in fact, what happened. So they still have not updated the prize website. As soon as they do, I will tell you who the jurors were. But this is a really interesting turn of events. I'm going to have to get myself a copy of the Night Watch for my Pulitzer collection. I don't have all this preparation for naught. But I did kind of feel, I'm going to give myself a little credit, because I did kind of feel that was a thing that could easily happen this year. When you go for something that's going to be a little bit left field, it's really hard to predict what direction they will go. So, wow. And if you also want to get a copy of the book, I'll have an affiliate link to Bookshop down below. You can use that if you want, or support an independent bookstore, or you check your library, anything like that. And if you want to know more about the other finalists, here is a description of Wednesday's Child, which is a story collection by Yi Yoon Lee. A grieving mother makes a spreadsheet of everyone she's lost. Elsewhere, a professor develops a troubled intimacy with her hairdresser. And every year, a restless woman receives an email from a strange man twice her age and several states away. In the stories of Wednesday's Child, people strive for an ordinary existence until doing so becomes unsustainable, until the surface cracks and the grand mysterious forces, death, violence, estrangement, come to light. Even before such moments, everyday life is laden with meaning, studded with indelible details, a filched jar of honey, a mound of wounded ants, a photograph kept hidden for many years until it must be seen. Now, I read a Yi Yoon Lee book for the BookTube Prize, and let me see what it was, because I'm completely blanking on the name. It was Where Reasons End, and I was not a fan. I don't think it advanced from that round. So I've always been hesitant to read more of Yi Yoon Lee's work, but I know that's definitely an author where if you like Yi Yoon Lee's work, you are all in, I guess. So there's that. And then if you need a description of Same Bed, Different Dreams, in 1919, far-flung patriots established the Korean Provisional Government to protest the Japanese occupation of their country. This government in exile proves mostly symbolic, though, and after Japan's defeat in World War II, the KPG dissolves and civil war erupts, resulting in the tragic North-South split that remains today. But what if the KPG still existed, now working toward a unified Korea, secretly pulling levers to further its aims? Same Bed, Different Dreams weaves together three distinct narrative voices with an archive of mysterious images and twists reality like a kaleidoscope. Korean history, American pop culture, and our tech-fraught lives come together in this extraordinary and unforgettable novel. And that's all I will say about that. The Pulitzer Prize seems to have a bit of an obsession with Korea, because The Orphan Master's Son by Adam Johnson won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and that was one of the ones that really broke the notion of that it represents American life. And now Same Bed, Different Dreams became a finalist. So just something interesting to point out. So ultimately, how do we feel about this? Because here's the thing. I haven't read Night Watch by Jane Ann Phillips, so I can't really say anything about the quality of the book. It was something that I was excited to read. It was in the long list for the National Book Award for fiction, so it's not that it's a completely unknown book or completely out of left field. However, the difficult thing about big book prizes like the Pulitzer is that it's important to feel invested in the winner. And when you have a long list in advance, like the Booker Prize does, the Women's Prize does, pretty much every other major literary prize does, it gives people time to get invested in the winner. It gives people time to read the long list and the short list and start making guesses about what's going to win. The Pulitzer doesn't really give you that option. And I feel like immediate reaction to this is going to be exactly what I am. Which is kind of like, okay, well, this is a bit of a weird year. We didn't see this coming. I don't know much about this book. It feels like there'd be much more immediate reaction if it had been, like, say, any of these books. If people had been given the opportunity to react to like a Northwoods win or a Heaven and Earth grocery store win or a Tom Lake win, we would be having this sort of sense of catharsis. We'd be really excited. And because it's a book that's a little lesser known, I feel like immediate reaction is going to be kind of like, bleh. Everyone has been getting really excited, and now we've gone downhill. Last year, part of what was so exciting, and there was just this big thunderous reaction to the Pulitzer winner because the two biggest books of the year had won, and that was never going to happen again. I feel like history will ultimately bear out whether or not this is a good win. I'm actually still excited to read this book, so I'm really glad that the Pulitzer put it back on my radar. But in the moment, it doesn't feel that exciting. It kind of just feels like, okay. So that's where we're at. And that's at least how I'm feeling as I react to this win. I am guessing that's how a lot of you are feeling. I haven't really seen a whole lot of reaction yet, but I think this is potentially a good win because it's a book that I was really interested in. And, Jane Ann Phillips actually does fit the mold of something I talk about a lot, where there is a career that has been going on and sort of a breakout book. People really liked Larkin to Termite a lot when it was published. So the mold I usually talk about is Jeffrey Eugenides. The Virgin Suicides became something of a cult favorite, and then it was adapted into a movie. And then his next book won a Pulitzer Prize for fiction. So there's sort of a mold for that, and Jane Ann Phillips actually fits it. She's had a career writing books that have been sort of quietly appreciated by critics. Larkin Termite felt like a bit of a breakout, and now we have a Pulitzer for her. So it's tough because there would be a lot more excitement if it was Tom Lake or Heaven and Earth Grocery Store or North Woods or, like I said, any of those books. And we just don't really know yet. I'm sure there are people out there who have read Night Watch. And if you have, I would love to hear your thoughts of it in the comment section down below. Please let me know. I'm going to be getting a copy. I'll be reading it. I'm looking forward to it, actually. I want to say the audio was available somewhere, so I might even look for that. Maybe I'll listen to the audio while I'm traveling in Ireland, because I think it seems like that would be a good way to go. And then maybe when I get back, I can do a deep dive on the book. There's just no way I can do it before I leave. So timing won't work like that. I think history will tell us if this is a good win or not, or if popular consensus starts to coalesce behind Night Watch. But I imagine in this moment, a lot of you are feeling the same way I do, which is that this is just kind of a thing that happened and it's not that exciting. You don't get that ability to get to know the finalists when they're not announced in advance, and you can't prepare for a situation like this. So we're all just going to have to play catch up. And I admit I don't feel too excited because I really did kind of feel invested in the books that I was predicting. But I'm not entirely disappointed because this was a book I was interested in, and I'll catch up to it. And I'll make a decision then about what I think should have won. But ultimately, what I think should have won doesn't really mean anything. So we'll see. I'll catch up to it. I do feel sad for Tom Lake, which I think would have been a worthy winner. I know that a lot of people out there don't necessarily agree with that. I think it is still a bit of a crime that James McBride has not even been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for fiction. He deserves to be a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for fiction, and we're going to have to wait again. He didn't get the prize for The Good Lord Bird, which is faced out on my shelf right here. I think he should have won for that book. He didn't get it for Deacon King Kong. I predicted he would, and now unrecognized again for the Heaven and Earth Grocery Store. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with his next book. We'll see what happens with Daniel Mason's book. Alice McDermott still isn't getting any respect. Justin Torres could be back with his next book. And Jesmyn Ward still out there waiting for recognition from the Pulitzer Prize as well. So that's kind of the way things are right now. Let me check one more time because they still have not updated their website to let us know who the jury was. They actually just updated it as I was about to start downloading this video to upload it. So the jury for this year's prize was Sam Sachs. Sam Sachs was the chair of the prize. He is a book critic for the Wall Street Journal. Then Lan Samantha Chang, who is the program director of the Iowa Writers Workshop, and released a book about a year ago. I want to say it was called The Family Chow, that sounded really interesting, but I have not read. Lydia Millay, author and deputy creative director of the Center for Biological Diversity in Tucson. Lydia Millay is an author of Dinosaurs, which might have even been eligible this year, and a children's Bible, which had been in the mix for the National Book Award. The big one is Michael Chabon, who is in the Pulitzer family of authors. He was a winner for The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. Odds are you're very familiar with his work. And then the final person on the jury was Tayari Jones, who has won the Women's Prize for a book that I was not a big fan of, which was Biography of a Marriage, something like that. So that is the jury that we had for this year. We finally know their identity. And I can see Michael Chabon being a fan of Jane Ann Phillips. I'm not as familiar with the other writers in there. So that's interesting. And there is your jury for this year. Let me know what you think about this. If you've read Night Watch, let me know what you think of it, please, because I'm going to have to wait until I get a copy of it. And I might even have to wait until I get back from Ireland. Let me know what you think of this announcement. Again, I feel like the downside of a lesser known book winning the prize is that it's very hard to be excited. And I know I'm feeling that. I can't help it. So maybe you are as well. Let me know your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions about this prize announcement in the comment section down below. And you know what? I'm going to give myself some credit here, actually, because I'm going to dig up the clip of what I said when I did my prediction, because I knew that this was the possibility. I'm pretty sure I even said my actual prediction is that it will be a book we don't see coming. So I'm going to dig it up, but I'll cut to it right here. My real suspicion for the Pulitzer is that after they had a tie last year between the two biggest books of the year, no less, the Pulitzer jury and board will probably snap back in the other direction. I think we're more likely to have a year like 2022, when the three finalists were lesser known books and the Netanyahus emerged victorious. The problem there is that it is very difficult to predict what lesser known book they might gravitate toward, because those books are definitionally lesser known. I think there's a strong possibility that we won't have a big known book as the winner this year. But I need to pick a specific book or else this is no fun. Yeah. So do I give myself credit for that? I mean, I kind of do, but if you don't, that's fine. But yeah, I did know. And I just felt like I had to go along with a prediction, and it's hard to know where a book that people don't really see coming is going to come from. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit for that. But you let me know, do you think I get credit for that as well? Because ultimately I did end up predicting Tom Lake, which was not the book that won. But I did know that this was a strong possibility, and I did say it was my actual prediction. And even in the thing, I'm pretty sure at the beginning of this video, I said the same thing. So I'm going to give myself some credit. You let me know if you do as well. I appreciate you going on this Pulitzer journey with me. I love doing it, even though, I'm not even mad that I didn't cover this book in my Pulitzer Prize predictions. I knew it was going to happen some year. And let me know what you think of this announcement, this prize, all of that stuff in the comment section down below. Again, I appreciate you going on this Pulitzer Prize journey with me. It's something I love, and I love that people have started getting excited about it alongside me. So now we have to wait a year before we have another announcement, but oh well, it is what it is. As always, I really appreciate your time, and I will be back. Until next time, happy reading.